look at the big picture, right? So we are in a very busy season right now. Lots of travel, lots of business, lots of things going on. And for me, I kind of look at the whole pie. And if one side kind of feels off, then I know I kind of got to tilt back, the other way. Um, I think that also I'm very fortunate.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan, speaker, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and we talk all things money and business. I'm super excited to bring to you Sandy Glant today. She's going to be sharing her secrets on balancing mom and work life, how to create a command central in your home. She's going to talk about organizing tips and time blocking, and of course, her incredible best-selling book, Slay Your Day.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. So good to see you. I love all the pink. It's so pretty.
Thank you. It's, on brand with the book, and it's like the pageant stuff's in there, the business, the kids, hubby's up there somewhere.
Awesome. So yes, I know you got 30 minutes. We'll go through the questions that you gave me. And then at the end, if you have anything coming up that you want to promote, definitely do that. And I'll ask you, how do people reach you? So like your social media stuff.
Okay, perfect. I'm so glad we could finally do this. It's been, I'm
I,
so sorry. It's been so crazy.
I can't imagine your schedule. So I'm grateful for the time.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me.
All right, we'll start.
Okay, great.
Hi, Sandy. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Thanks for having me here. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on today. I would love for you to first before we jump into all of the amazing things that you're doing now, start off with your journey and how you got to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah. So my background is I was working in media in Pennsylvania. I had my own event planning, wedding planning company. And, I'll give you the short Cliff Notes version of the story. When I moved here to Miami, because I met my husband and I moved my entire life from Pennsylvania to Miami, I was doing fitness coaching. And the number one question that I would always get from clients wasn't about fitness, it wasn't about nutrition plans, and it wasn't about their workouts. It was, how do I find time to do this? Well, most of these clients were busy working moms. So it wasn't that they were asking, how do I meal plan for the week, or what workouts can I do? The biggest question was about time. So again, fast forward from there, I had my first son, and in my own life, I started seeing how real of a question that was, and how really big of a pain point that was, because as someone who is highly ambitious and has my own goals and dreams, outside of just mom and wife, I also have these really big goals I wanted to go after, but I had to be strategic in how I was going about them, if I was going to even have a chance, at accomplishing them.
Yeah, so you probably learned a lot along the way. Slay Your Day, I love the slogan. I would think it's very powerful. And I think that, there's a lot of things that come with what you're teaching. So why don't we start with, you touched on moms. So moms, like you said, can be very overwhelmed. My daughter thankfully is in college now, but
wow.
what are some key habits or things that you would recommend for people that are trying to balance both work and family life?
Yeah. So I have a couple, and these have helped me really, stay focused on what it is that I'm doing and move the ball forward. And the first thing I would say is heavily relying on time blocking. And a lot of times people will say, well, especially as a working mom, my days are never the same, or my kids are homesick, or like there's always so many unknowns. especially when you are set on a certain time. Like I know if I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, like this morning, my son gets up at 5:30 and it doesn't always go according to plan. So, one of the things I try and stick to is having the consistency and being in the thing that I'm in. So when I'm working, I'm fully in work mode, whether it's, shooting content or working with my clients, emails. And then when I'm in mom mode, I'm fully in that, piano classes and soccer, and there's so many extracurriculars that the kids are in. And we're actually doing like a new homeschooling program this year. So they're only going to school for 3 hours a day. It's not even school, it's like a tutoring program. So that forces me even to be more strategic with my time. And the other thing I would say to that is like, there's so many awesome apps and tools that you can dive into now, from grocery shopping, any kind of like orders, or like for us, we have someone that comes to the house and like fills up my gas tank or cleans the cars, like little things like that really help save you these pockets of time. So whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, a half an hour, like you give me a couple of those half an hour chunks where I'm buying back time and someone's like delivering my groceries or filling up my gas tank, like that is a huge game changer.
Yeah. And I watched you on social media for a little bit now, and I'm always fascinated because you use a calendar, like a paper calendar. Can you talk
Yes.
about how that started and how it helps your family?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, paper is so outdated, but we have a lot of moving parts in our house. And I'm very fortunate because there's people that are in my home that help. I also have family members that help. So, in our home, we have a command center, and this command center is like the home base of our home. You can find the schedules there. You can find the pickup, drop off, who's picking up, who's dropping off, the kids from school. You can find all the important information in one place. There's no like scrounging through papers to find it. I do sync my calendar with my husband's calendar. So those, like, he can see mine, I can see his. But if we're talking about like my in-laws helping, if we're talking about the nanny, if we're like anyone in our support system, they can go into our laundry room and they can see a color coded calendar of times and schedules and pickups and drop offs. And that's the beauty of having it on paper in print, is that I don't have to make sure my nanny has it synced to her calendar, which like she doesn't even use. It's something physical that anybody can see. And if they're in our home, if they're helping us in any way, they can go reference that and they know exactly where to go.
Yeah, perfect. You also are an author. Talk us like through the process. When did you decide to write a book? Why? And how you went through that process?
Yeah, so I wrote the book 2020. I was pregnant with my second son, Jordan. And I don't know how you were during pregnancy, but I feel like both pregnancies, I got so creative and I was just kind of like, I think because I knew I had a hard deadline of like the baby's coming by this day, I really was pushing myself to kind of hit some goals before, I got into mom mode, or like round two, our second son came along. But for me, I also wrote this book during COVID, right? 2020 was COVID. And I have courses for my clients. I have one-on-one coaching, I have group coaching, but I wanted to give them um a physical asset that they could take and go through for, under $20, that would help them have wins right out of the gate. Like you can purchase that book. Every chapter has a little journaling section at the end where you work through every chapter and you implement. And I wanted people who maybe didn't know about me or were learning about me for the first time to be able to go through, have wins just from the book, and then see how well that was working. So then they could go in, believe that they could do the work, believe in, the systems and the strategies, and want to dive deeper, because the deeper you go, the better it gets.
Hmm. So, as a working mom, I'm sure many things get thrown your way. How do you prioritize and kind of keep it organized so that you can tackle the things that you need to and maybe say no to the things you don't? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so I'm pretty firm and solid in like where and how I show up, right? So there's events that happen and I have to say no to them. There's opportunities that happen and I say no to them. And it's because I know what those priorities are. For me, my family always comes first. So if it's, speaking at an event. This just happened this past week. If it's an opportunity to speak at an event or, be with my kids on the weekends, like my kids, that's going to come first. There's a lot of things that I look at. I kind of look at the big picture, right? So we are in a very busy season right now. Lots of travel, lots of business, lots of things going on. And for me, I kind of look at the whole pie. And if one side kind of feels off, then I know I kind of got to tilt back, the other way. I think that also I'm very fortunate because I have a very supportive partner. So, when he's in his busy season where he's traveling, I help him kind of hold down the fort here at home and with the kids. And when I have things to do, it's speaking events or travel, like he's really good at supporting me there. So the support piece is huge, but then there's also kind of the tactical part of that as well, which, we can get into. But I think that it's really important to know what your priorities are, because if you don't know what they are, it's easy to say yes to these really shiny opportunities that sound good, but on the other side of that, it's like, okay, is that what I really want? Are those values that I stand for? Am I really standing true in them? Or am I just kind of taking the shiny object that's right in front of me?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned tactical. What does that mean? And give us some examples.
Yeah. So the tactical is all of the things that I teach in my academy with my clients. This is everything from setting systems in your business. So today we are so fortunate and lucky to have, especially right now with all the AI that's out there. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm sure you're using a lot of this in your business, but there's so many components of AI that we're using in the business that help to save so much time. And aside with automations and AI, having a team as well, and having a team that's there to support you and knowing their roles. And for me, I always like to talk about my big money moves. And I have a free training that I can also share with your audience as well. But I always like to focus on what are the three main things that are going to move me forward every single day and give me that momentum, not have me in a headspace of feeling overwhelmed, but allow me to move forward every single day in a very strategic way. Those three things, because this is another question that I get, is like, are they three things in business and then three things personal and three things at home? Like only three things for that day. Because if we were to do three home, three family, three personal, like you're back to a to-do list, right? And then like that defeats the purpose of having your three main things. So three important needle moving activities every single day that are important to you to focus on. So again, like every day for me is different. Those three things pretty much every day are different. But I also need to know what those big money move items are so I can focus on them and not get caught up in the minutia of just like being busy and focusing on, 10 things instead of three things that are really going to move me forward.
And those three things I imagine are constantly changing too.
Right, exactly. So some days it might be sales calls. Other days it might be following up with clients. Some days it's like, hey, I got to go pick my kids up from school early and spend time with them, because if I'm saying that is the most important thing to me, right? Time with my family, but I'm not prioritizing that, then is it really important? Is it really that important? So family is always in there. And it could be like having a family dinner and not having phones with us. And I think as a working mom, for me, like I don't want to be on the phone and be distracted. Like this morning at breakfast, my kids like to watch TV and I'm like, we're turning off the TV and we have these really fun like conversation cards. And they're really great, especially my kids are little, they're only 4 and 7, but they're really great at like starting a conversation, whether it's with your spouse, your partner, your kids. And like we're like, we don't even need the TV. We just sit there and and they come up with their own questions. So it's really great for like conversation starters, but then also getting that connection in those small pockets of time.
Yeah. And that's great communication skills that you're teaching them as well.
They come up with the craziest stuff. I think that part of being an entrepreneur is like having, being creative and having communication skills. So I love that it's not like, well, tell me what your favorite color is. It's like if you and I'll give you like some examples. So some of the ones they come up with are like, if we could be the principal of the school for the day, like what's one rule that we would have for all the kids? And then they're like, we get to have candy, or we get to have like cotton candy for lunch, like, things that they, in their mind is like super important. So it's really fun to also see where their headspace is at, because otherwise I don't know if those questions would have come up, if we were just sitting there watching TV.
Yeah. And so those are some great tips about prioritizing and your three main things.
Yeah.
But as a working mom, we have to balance, right? So what happens when we have to say no to our kids, or something comes up that we have to say no to, and we experience that guilt feeling? What do you
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah. So I think, again, like, it's really important to honor and acknowledge the season that we're in, because I first really kind of dove into the season, like that word season, and embraced it when I had my first son. So when Jake was born, and my world kind of went upside down, and I was like, who am I now? Like, am I the mom? Am I the wife? Am I the business owner? Because everything seemed so like a hurricane just like came through, and I didn't know which way was up or down. So I think understanding, acknowledging, and knowing what season you're in is really important. Like, we just came off of an amazing summer, which really that is a season. I mean, summer is a season, but I mean season in terms of like, you might be in a newborn stage, or you might be in that grind stage of your business that needs more time. But like, what is that season? So you have to identify it, you have to acknowledge it, and then you have to figure out how you're going to navigate that. So like for me, when I was in newborn stage, and, both times when Jake was born and when Jordy was born, after Jordy was born, I had kind of already gone through the learning season with Jake, because that's what your firsts are for. So thanks to Jake for that. But, I think with those seasons, you have to identify it, because, like, again, for me, this summer was a season of being more with the kids. I thought, I was going to sign the kids up for summer camps, and they were going to have so much fun, and it was going to be time for me to work in my business and, really have some dedicated time. Well, my youngest is 4 and has never been outside of the home in a daycare or a school or a camp before. So my expectations, what I thought was going to happen, was completely opposite of what actually happens. And I had to course correct, and I had to look and kind of look almost like a bird's eye view, and say like, okay, I know this isn't forever. And I actually, you know what, Angela, I ended up embracing it, because I realized like probably next year, it's not even going to be the same thing anymore. Like, he's not going to want to be like clinging to me, wanting to be with me all the time. And, he'll be used to it by then. So in the beginning, it was hard, but then for me to kind of take a step back and say, like, I acknowledge that this is a season. Like, what can I learn from this right now? How can I show up to make sure that what I have going on is still like those needs are being met? But then also, of course, the needs of my family, because again, like, if my son needs me and he's worried that, I don't know, mom's like not going to come back to camp, like, I need to make sure that I'm wearing that mom hat and reassuring him everything's going to be okay. I'll be here. I was like bringing my computer to work and working out of the camp. Like, that was how crazy it was. So, again, I think that every season there's an ebb and a flow, and sometimes it's heavier on one side than another. But that's why I go back to, what are those 3 big money moves, as I like to call them? What are those 3 things that you need to get done? Because if nothing else goes the way that you think it's going to go, or according to the plan, you can fall back on those 3 things and say, did I at least do that today? Did I at least get those 3 things done? And that's the thing that I'm going to, base whether or not it was a successful day, not 20 things that I, bombarded my to-do list with.
Yeah, I definitely need to work on that. I think when you have 3 things, it doesn't feel as overwhelming. But
Right.
I am a task person. I am a to-do list, and it's constantly going. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, did I really even accomplish
Yeah.
anything today? Because there were so many things on my list.
Right. And then some of them, this is the other thing as well, like Pareto principle, 80%, so 20%, right? So it's the 80-20 principle. So 20% of that full pie, right, are the things that are actually giving you 80% of the results. So my philosophy is, look at that 20% that's actually giving you 80% of those results. Those are your big money moves. Those are the areas that you focus on, right? Don't worry about the other 80% that's kind of just busy work, or you have to do it. Look at that, I call it busy work just for the sake of this conversation. Look at that 80% busy work. How can you automate, delegate, or outsource those things to focus your time on the 20% that's giving you the 80% of your results?
Hmm. Well, you gave us a little teaser earlier about a freebie. I know my audience loves freebies, so tell me about that.
Yeah, so it's the big money moves, what I keep talking about. So it is a training. So it's a video as well as a PDF and a download where they can grab that. So all they have to do is go over to sandraglant.com/big money and they can grab that. I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. But it's completely free. It's a video that they can go through and watch to help them identify what are their big money moves. How do you identify them? And then there's a worksheet that they can print out. I like to keep mine laminated because, you can easily wipe it off and fill it out again. So that's the free training. It's sandraglant.com/big money.
Big money. Perfect. And if you could give our audience one piece of advice, mother to mother, what do you think that would be?
So I think it's just give yourself grace. Again, like it doesn't matter if you have one kid or you have 10 kids. It's never, if you're doing it right, this is what I've learned. If you're doing it right, it's never going to be easy, right? Because you can do the bare minimum and let your kids just kind of go through life, however they're going to go through. But if you're really trying to show up and look, I'm reading just as many parenting books as I'm investing in personal development, business, marketing, and my business as a whole. So like it's very much I'm in it and trying to learn as much as I can about parenting. Because as you know, when you think you have it figured out, things change. And with two boys, like I'm never going to be a boy. I'm never going to understand, boys or men, even as close as my husband can. But I'm trying to show up as the best mom that I can be and wife that I can be. And I think that there's so many moms that I think we beat ourselves up. Like something's not perfect or it's not the way that we want it to turn out to be. But it's like, if you're showing up and you're really intentional about putting that time into your family and into, prioritizing that, like you're doing a good job. And I think we don't give women, especially the moms that are listening, enough credit for how awesome that we are to show up, to run a business, be a mom, be the caretaker, run the home, do all the things, because it is a lot of work.
Definitely is. Sandy, if our audience wants to learn more about you, what's the best way they can find you?
Yeah, so a couple ways. My website is sandraglant.com. And I'm most active over on Instagram and YouTube. So every week I have brand new YouTube videos and podcasts that are going up. So definitely check that out because that's all free content. And most weeks I'm giving also free downloads and other free resources. So that's a great place to tap into that. Slay Your Day podcast, YouTube channel, and then over on Instagram at Sandy Glant.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.